My name is Rosa Bar Williams, and I'll be reading a poem entitled Potential Sisters. Am I my sister's keeper? Aren't we all made in the same image? We most certainly breathe the same air and bleed the same color. Yet you label me as the Black angry woman. Damn right, I have a reason to be angry, and I make no apologies about it. You came from my people, which changed our trajectory forever. You dismantled us from our African god and goddesses, such as Otobalan and Oshan. You labeled us as Mammy, Jezebel, and welfare queen to cover up your inabilities, promiscuities, and hidden agendas. You continue to marginalize us, set us back, rape our mothers and daughters, kill our fathers and brothers, all because you feel threatened by our Blackness. So my sister, can you get a glimpse of what your people are doing? If you can't see that, then I'm not sure we can be sisters. Am I my sister's keeper? You see, our oppression spreads wide and goes so deep, 400 years to be exact. Yet to this day, still no apology and nothing to right the wrongs. In fact, y'all don't understand and continue to wonder why we just can't get over it. Let me ask you, if you were taken from your native land, stripped of your culture, sold away from your family, wasn't considered human, could you get over that? So you see, my sister, slavery, Mr. Jim Crow, and racism is not dead. My people have continued trying to fix the mess your people created. We will continue to fight and not allow it to become our first language. It's been a long road, and if my skin color and Blackness continues to offend you and disturb you, the road will continue to get longer. Although I am a little confused because you pay to have our full lips and curvy hips. You want to be dark complected, but not considered Black. So let me get this straight. You embrace our culture, but not our Blackness. You enjoy your white privileges, although you boldly confess you love everyone the same until you can no longer breathe. When will you recognize that our intersectionality divides us and we live in America that is not so free and a home of the cowardly? So my sister, if you are not ready to shift your paradigm or just hear me for 1 minute, then I'm not sure I can be a potential sister. Am I my sister's keeper? Your views have been distorted, see. Your people may have come for us, but they didn't break us. They may have even held us down, but they didn't keep us down. They counted us out when we were never counted in. You see, my sister, it was never about you. I mean, you had your movements and we have ours. We were not upset when our 40 acres and a mule never came. We were not afraid when we had to bear his children. We were not mad when our loved ones were ripped from out our arms. Nope, we did what we normally do. We bounced back and we took charge. All we really wanted to do is write our own history and tell our own narrative. Because it seems like when Black women talk, no one listens. But today, my sister, we are going to shout louder than the roaring seas to be heard and stand taller than the highest mountains to be seen, because being understood, recognized, and counted in is part of the narrative. So my sister, I thank you for your empathy, for the shoulder to lean on, and for the backs to press against, for coming together and being a part of the village. Because we are sisters. I am your keeper, but our struggles are and will remain real. Thank you.
My name is Melisha Taylor. I am a vocal professor at Cal State San Marcos. And today I'm presenting She's Coming. And She's Coming was a music video that I created with artist Charmaine Minifield, who is a local activist and historian here in Atlanta, Georgia. We are based inside of a water tower that fed the cotton fields of Atlanta. And that water tower was going through a process of, Charmaine is putting a mural inside of that water tower. And so you're going to see a mural surrounding the space that I'm singing in. And that mural depicts pictures of women from the Spelman College archives. And those historic Black women are figures in American history. Black women were a part of most of the domestic labor that made America what it is today. You note that Black women slaves were taught to endure so much oppression. Not only did we have to birth more children by a master who owned us, we were also auctioned off to be nannies and caretakers of white children. So a lot of what you're seeing is a history of the story of Black women who were enslaved. And now we are bringing to life the story of Black women who are free. So this video is about liberation, and I am studying currently liberatory praxis in vocal arts. So you will hear me singing with different parts of my voice. I'm singing with an operatic tone from my classical training, but I'm also singing in a blues tone because I believe that the blues best express Black history and the struggle of Blackness in America. I also believe that there is no art without the sacred, that there is no music without dance, without visuals, and without words. As within, so without. As it is in heaven, so it is on earth. And the soil of my vocal practice is rich. Its nutrients are composed of unknown but ever potent African clay, of southern roots and trees, of California dreams and blue skies, of blues and of jazz, of church music, of spoken word poetry nights and choir tours and symphonies, conversations with my voice teachers, and applications to young artist programs. All of these things tie into my career as a vocal artist, being a Black woman and free. The dirt and my rocks in my soil are solid. I will not abandon any parts of what makes me who I am. My education, my upbringing, my heritage and my interests, or my purpose, if I am to be fully present as an artist here today, and an artist of the human voice. This autoethnography that I'm going to embark on, I will title Transcending Performance, Black Liberatory Praxis in Vocal Arts. And in this autoethnography, I'm going to be combining the story that you'll see today with other stories in my journey, tying in the idea of Sankofa. Sankofa is a West African tale about a bird whose beak pulls back to its tail. And you've seen probably in some African American literature. It's a beautiful bird that uses its tail. It leans its head back to its tail in order to inform the present day. So it's the idea of reaching back into history, bringing that history forward into the future. And so I believe that as a Black woman in today's world, in the present, living into the future, it is important for me to also reach back into my past, into my African roots and my African traditions, some of which were never taught to me, but bringing them forward into my present day experience. All of the parts of who I am to be the full artist that I was called to be. Thank you.
So this poem is called I Know I'm Capable by Catalina Neal. Now entering civil engineering town. Am I in the right place? I say to myself as I look around. In a town where mostly white men roam, for a Black and Asian girl, it's hard to feel like home. The lack of diversity brings me doubt, but I try to remind myself why I chose this route. By earning this degree, I am part of the change that I wish to see. I don't shy away out of fear because I know I'm capable of making it here. So it looks like I'm here to stay, and I don't look back because I'm not going that way. So in this poem, I talk about the uncertainties that come with being a woman of color in the STEM field, and particularly civil engineering, which is my major. And I talk about resilience, empowerment, and self-confidence in this poem, but I also like to make it known that there are some difficulties that women of color face. And according to the National Society of Black Engineers, they found that while only 20% of engineering graduates are women, only 1 in 5 degrees are earned by women of color. And this can be very discouraging for a lot of us, in addition to the sense of isolation. Challenges like racial and gender stereotypes and systemic racism are also prominent factors that play into this disproportion. So that's what my poem embodies. Thank you.
I was born in Querétaro, Mexico, in a small village called Misión de Bucareli. I come from a very poor background. When I was born, I only had 2 outfits and no blankets. My blanket was my dad's only jacket. When I was 2, my parents made the difficult decision to leave their children and immigrated to San Diego. So you could imagine the trauma that a 2-year-old goes through when separated from their parents. My siblings and I were left to my grandmother's care, who I soon learned to call mom. At the age of 12, my parents brought me to San Diego. Once again, I was separated from the person that I consider my mother. My new life in San Diego was filled with fear, physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. I had no voice, and I was not allowed to speak up. As a result, I became fearful, shy, anxious, depressed, and doubted my ability to be successful. I was not allowed to have friends, and also I was not allowed to practice my English or speak English at home. I was also forbidden to talk about the issues at home. My senior year, my math teacher talked to me about college and suggested that I talk to my counselor. I did, and she said that college was not for me. I was Mexican, and most Mexican girls get pregnant before they go to college. I listened and said nothing. So I eventually got to college, but when I got there, I was carrying the weight of my family, their trauma, and my trauma. On top of that, I was also dealing with an inner voice that kept telling me that I should quit because I was not good enough. I would get paralyzed by my self-doubt, thinking that I was not college material and that somebody would eventually find out that I was a big fraud and that I shouldn't be in college. As a result, I never participated in class or any campus events. The fear that somebody can figure it out that I was not smart and that my English was all broken kept me in the back of the classroom. My senior year, a professor asked me to come to his office hours. When I got there, he said he was impressed with my college essays, and I couldn't believe it. He went on and asked me, "What do you want to do when you graduate?" I started crying and said I had no idea. I told him I had a poor GPA and that I was just not good enough for college, let alone a career, and that maybe I should just be a house cleaner like my mother. From there, he became my mentor. He eventually learned about my story, spoke to me about the importance of mental health, and recommended that I seek therapy. With therapy and my professor's mentoring, I was able to overcome my depression and my anxiety. And I learned that mental health and self-care are sacred things. Then came graduate school at the University of San Diego, and fear invaded my soul and my heart. Thinking and waiting for somebody to tell me that they had made a mistake in the admissions process and that I was not graduate school material. One day, my fear became a reality. My graduate school advisor, an older white male, called me into his office to tell me that I was not graduate school material and that my writing did not meet the standards. That day, my soul and dreams were crushed. I went home crying and thought that was it. I went back the next day to talk to the only Latino professor in the program and told him that I was quitting the program. And he asked why. I explained to him that I was just not graduate school material. I told him about my fears and that Dr. So-and-so had confirmed my fears. And for the first time, I heard about imposter syndrome. And my professor said that it was common among first-generation students and students of color. This professor became my mentor. He helped me with my writing, empowered me to speak up and advocate for myself. That's when I learned the importance of surrounding yourself with mentors and friends who are supportive and understand what it is to be a first-generation Latina woman in higher education. I soon completed my master's, and I requested a raise and a new title at the job that I had back then. Both of my requests were denied. Even though I submitted evidence that my job duties had changed and that I was doing the work of 3 people, I felt stuck. I had been there for so long. And once again, fear took over me and I started questioning my ability to be successful in counseling. I stayed at that job for another 3 years. I applied to lots of jobs and got lots of rejections. And the more rejections I got, the more defeated I felt. I finally reached out to 2 good mentors of mine and asked for feedback on my resume. Soon after that, I got the position that I was looking for, but soon realized that imposter syndrome never goes away. But this time, I decided I would embrace imposter syndrome, that I would no longer be its victim, and that I would use it as an opportunity to challenge myself to do new things and grow. Through all this, I've learned that imposter syndrome is a gift, that adversity makes you stronger, and that having mentors is an essential part of our journey, and that self-love is key to success. I've also learned that God will never give me a burden that I cannot bear. Today, I'm a proud first-generation Latina in higher education, and my life's purpose and passion is to empower, mentor younger generations to help them find their passion, reach their goals, and accomplish their dreams.
As women of color, we work twice as hard to be heard, seen, and acknowledged by those who don't look like us. We squeeze, we fight, and force ourselves into spaces where we are seldomly represented. And when we arrive, we look around, but all the seats are taken. The tables feel crowded, the placemats are filled, but oh, how we hope someone will grab a chair and make just enough room for one more. We battle with forces of oppression in our community and often at work, then struggle to silence our own inner voices that constantly whisper, "You are an imposter. What are you doing here?" Then we look around, but our fire starts to dim and our eyes fill with tears, our corazones start to ache, and the familial creeps in again and again, feeling alienated and lost. We depend on our tribe of courageous women to remind us our skin, our curves, our hair, and our speech is beautiful, and our intellect worthy to be shared. They remind us why our breath is sacred and worthy of life. They affirm us in our greatness and share their fire. They hang around to fan our spark till it is strong enough to become a flame. They dance around each other's fire until we are finally strong enough to release embers to be shared with another. Let us fan someone else's spark and remind them they are worthy, just like the women that reminded us of our own greatness.
Speaking our truth. Seems like for centuries, we have been told that calladitas más bonitas at home. Quieter, we are prettier. At work, silence is expected. Don't discuss salaries. Keep your head down and work. And don't you dare share your feelings. Speaking our truth. We are asked to overwork and to take on more just to show our worth. We go over and beyond because we see those young faces and don't want them to endure the many struggles we had to endure. Black, brown, indigenos, who will center them if we do not exist in these places? Who will help them when they are in need?
And who will they see that looks like them if I am not here? Speaking our truth. We can run the department, we can run the meetings, and we have what it takes to change these policies. We realize slowly that we can do the work our managers seem to offload onto us. Speaking our truth. Maybe we start to believe we are worthy, that we can be the managers and the supervisors, that we can lead in these positions. Slowly, they bring us back down and try to keep us in our place. Remind us with every application that we do not measure up. Speaking our truth, holding a doctorate, having over 13 years of experience, a national and state awarded leader, I am still not enough. Walking into an interview, 2 white administrators, an interim position. I am confident in my suit, answering every question. I've done all of these things before. I mean, I did write my dissertation based on this particular position. I didn't get it. Speaking my truth, I am reminded that I am not enough. But why? I signed up for a feedback session. This will help me in the future. I am greeted by a white administrator who lets me know he's gonna keep it real. He explains, we wanted to see the unapologetic Vanessa. You came in sounding too much like you wanted to come in and get things done. You know that sometimes we overcompensate due to our previous traumas? As my stomach turned, he continued, you know, you have a very Western approach to interviewing. Speaking my truth, you do not get to tell me when to be unapologetic. Are you mad that I learned the white man's way to interview? Did I come in too confident for your own liking? You know nothing about me or my traumas, and you do not get to prescribe overcompensation to my work ethic. Mr. Dean, you can call me Dr. Bustamante, and it is your job to have set this interview through a non-Westernized approach, not mine. Speaking my truth. Yo soy hija de María y René Bustamante, que cruzaron las fronteras de México. Por los barrios de East LA, yo aprendí ser activista. Yo soy Chicana, not Hispanic, not Latina. Chicana con sangre mexica, fighting for the liberation and self-determination of our communities, our barrio communities, our hood communities, where so often we are forgotten. An educated Chicana threatens colonialism. It threatens your white supremacy. A radical activista, educator, chola, doctora, that is me. I exist in these places, and I am coming for those positions. The more you knock me down, the more I get up. I will never give up. I will continue to fight. I will continue speaking my truth. I hope today, mujeres, women, that you will speak yours too. Our truths are needed to help set us free, to give us the strength to continue. Mujer, you are not crazy, and you do not need to give over any power to anyone. Now, I hope that you can go and speak your truth, just as I have spoken mine today. Thank you.
What it means to be she, her, ella, esa, la que nació en el otro lado, having 2 different identities. No, she's not two-faced, she is just code switching y tuvo que adaptarse a las 2 culturas. What it means to be esa has become a trend because las Latinas on TikTok are toxicas, but ethnicity is not a fad. It's not a game of likes where some wish to claim this title. It is not a competition, it is a toxic stereotype. What it means to be her is having expectations, to be her best in school, but no one asked her what she needed to succeed. They left her to figure that out on her own. Did they not know she'd be the first in her family nopal to break the cycle? Or perhaps they just didn't bother to hear her story. They thought placing her in the ELD program would be enough for her to understand and speak proper English. So don't speak too much Spanish. But the mix of both befuddled her mind, so her tongue spoke Spanglish, to find herself narrating for both sides. To be her, a first-gen student, she breaks gender norms, because instead of being esa la que se mira que va a ser madre a los 15 años, she became ella la que se graduó de la high school para continuar con sus estudios for change. To be esa la que juzgan por cada acción que toma, trying to be her and ella, they both feel lost, because to be her comes with a cost. She does not want to forget her culture, but progress from the old-fashioned way, porque en vez de aprender a servirle a los tíos y a los primos, y aprende a respetar a los demás, she learned to have respect for herself. To be she, her, ella, esa, no podemos ganar. In this world, she and ella can't win, but to be both, we choose to fight every day, porque somos mujeres con esperanza, fuerza y rebeldía, because to be she, her, ella, esa is an act of resistance.
The poem that I'll be sharing today is about the struggle that many women of color have faced at one time or another. Eurocentric beauty standards is something that not only affects women of color in the US, but also affects women all around the globe. This poem is about how I grew to love myself and realizing that beauty is so much more than exterior appearances. So the poem that I wrote is called Skin Deep. When I was younger and I didn't know better, I would look in the mirror and weep. Mija querida, don't you know that skin is only skin deep? Brown eyes, brown hair, brown skin. The ugly truth is that beauty is in the eye of the colonizer. I abused my body by trying to become something that I could never be. I wanted to look like the girls in the teenage magazines, and that was my dream. Blue contacts, bleached hair, brightening cream. Now that I'm older and I know better, I look in the mirror and see my lineage, and I'm proud to be will be the promise I will keep. Mija querida, now you know your mestiza beauty is heart deep.
I'll be reading Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. She's a person who has always inspired me. My grandmother is probably the closest I have to a Maya Angelou in my life. And I'm just at a time where this poem really stuck out to me. And I've been reading it to my grandmother to remind her how phenomenal she is during her time of sickness right now. Pretty women under my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman, that's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows that stand fall down to their knees. They swarm around me, a hive of honeybees, I say. Is it the fire in my eyes? Is it the flash of my teeth? The swing in my waist and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman. I'm phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. It's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman, that's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need of my care. 'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman, that's me. Thank you.
En sus pasos. En sus pasos sigo la luz, esa luz que no siempre se ve, esa luz que no siempre se siente. En los pasos de mi abuela, en los pasos que presenciaron tanta pérdida y anhelaron tantas cosas. El dolor de quedar huérfana de niña, el dolor de no tener el amor de un padre, el dolor de aprender la triste realidad de sentirse sola en el mundo. En sus pasos que tuvieron que aprender a seguir adelante sola, los pasos que la llevaron adelante, los pasos que la hicieron fuerte, fuerte porque solo podía caminar adelante, solo adelante, siempre adelante. En los pasos de mi abuela que en su tiempo no comprendía el valor de una educación para sus hijas. Mi abuela que pensaba que un matrimonio era una cruz para toda la vida. En los pasos de mi madre, quien dejó su casa, su familia y su país sin la bendición de su madre. Mi madre, quien deseaba una vida diferente. Mi madre, quien hasta este día se siente como la oveja negra de su familia. Mi madre, que no siguió las convenciones del pasado. Mi madre, una madre soltera. Mi madre, una mujer fuerte. Mi madre, una sobreviviente. Mi madre, quien un día entendió que su cuerpo, su mente, su vida y la de sus hijos merecían más que golpes, moretones y sufrimientos. En los pasos de mi abuela, en los pasos de mi madre, pero en distintas direcciones. Sus pasos me enseñaron a ser fuerte. Sus pasos me enseñaron a querer más de la vida. Sus pasos me enseñaron que mi pasado no dictaría mi futuro. Sus pasos me pusieron en un camino diferente. Sus pasos forjaron un camino cual yo podría dictar. Yo entiendo que mis pasos no son solo míos. Mis pasos son parte del legado de mi abuela. Mis pasos son parte del legado de mi madre. Y mis pasos son parte del legado de mis hijas. Al ver los pasos de mis hijas, agradezco la fuerza de mi abuela. Al ver los pasos de mis hijas, agradezco la valentía de mi madre. Al ver los pasos de mis hijas, agradezco a todos los que forman parte de mi camino. En los pasos de mi abuela, seguiré aprendiendo que la oscuridad existe. En los pasos de mi madre, seguiré aprendiendo que no me deberé dejar vencer. En sus pasos, seguiré aprendiendo que la luz siempre estará, hasta en los días que no la vea, hasta en los días que no la sienta. En sus pasos, seguiré aprendiendo que merezco estar en la luz, merezco su calor, merezco su fuerza. En sus pasos, seguiré adelante, solo adelante, siempre adelante.
So I am here today to speak about my initial struggle to seek out for help, specifically with mental health. Coming from a Mexican background culture, I was often not aware of being able to express myself and speak about my emotions openly. And when I was at age 13, I experienced a traumatic event in my life along with my family, where we were in a life and death situation as we witnessed an eviction of a close family friend. And this occurred when I was in Mexico in 5 years. Thankfully, we all survived, and the only thing is that afterwards, my father just told me to not ever speak about it, to be silent, to not tell anybody about it. And I think this really just impacted me in a way that I didn't feel free to speak about it. I didn't really feel open to speak about my emotions and be able to process this event. And I was, at the time I didn't, but I was going through a lot of symptoms with PTSD. I was very surveillant of my surroundings, very fearful wherever I went. And after I came back to the US, because I did live in Mexico from 11 to 16 years old. So I came back to the US at 16 as my parents, without my family, because they're all undocumented. And those same emotions persisted. I just felt always fearful of something to occur similarly to that event. And it was until my third year in college where I began to learn more about mental health classes, as I have a major in human development, and I learned more about the importance of mental health, which was never a conversation within my family, friends. We never spoke about mental health or going through events that may have caused something traumatic in our life. So as I also went through other challenges, living here independently without my family, I was also going through housing insecurity, and I knew that I needed help in some manner, that my mental health wasn't good. And that's when I mentioned that I seeked out for help. So I learned that the center at the university included the cost of tuition for counseling services. And that's when I went in, called for an appointment, and was able, although there was help, I feel like it was a wait time. And having also know that there is not, for example, I specifically wanted a woman of color who would be my therapist to connect further. And it was difficult to find that. So I feel like that's a struggle too, not finding representation within therapy to provide these services for those who are needed, who are people of color. So that was something that came up, and it took a while, like a month and a half, until I got contact with a therapist who was also able to cover the cost with Medi-Cal, which is also difficult in itself, because having me come from a low economic status, it was difficult in finding that help. And I think people also aren't aware that that help is accessible. It just may be a little bit more challenging. So luckily, I was able to begin the process of healing through individual therapy, and as well, I joined support groups from the campus, and those were really helpful in recognizing the importance of mental health as a woman of color, and being able to stand for myself, express myself freely, and recognize that my experiences are important. So along with that, I learned about having experienced PTSD, learning how to cope with those fears that I held on for many years. Still, I was very hesitant to speak about my parents about this or with close family or friends. It took me a couple of months to, I guess, allow myself to speak on that, because I know that within my culture, it's difficult to speak about this. There isn't much conversation about it. And from there, I also just wanted to be an advocate for others who are also going through similar situations and need of these services, but are hesitant to do so or don't have the resources in order to get them. So I began as an intern for the Hopeful Wellness Center at the university where I go. I began to educate myself more on the topic of mental health. I learned about the stigma that often exists around mental health, and especially with communities of color. So I often word here that, going to therapy was considered negative because this is the things I would hear, but it meant that you couldn't handle your own experiences. And I just wanted to take that stigma away. And also working with undocumented mixed status students within my job, I learned also about the traumatic events that occurs with those communities, and due to detention, deportation, fear of immigration officers. And I also thought about the mental well-being of those individuals going through these experiences that is often not acknowledged, and therefore I think I really became inspired by that to also make a change. After completing my bachelor's degree, I'm planning to pursue a master's and PhD in psychology to become a psychologist and help these underrepresented communities, specifically also with undocumented mixed status families. And as my healing continues, I want to continue to educate myself, encourage those in my network and whoever I may encounter to speak about these issues, because I mentioned, as a person of color, there is often lack of representation. Having a low economic status, it's often difficult to find those resources for mental health. And I want to make a change in that I can empower others as well. And slowly encourage others who are afraid of seeking for therapy and healing to take the steps slowly whenever they're ready. Thank you.
Okay, so today I'm going to share a narrative that I wrote about an experience I recently had, and it's titled Little Hummingbird. My heart starts beating fast and all my thoughts start to scramble in my mind. I feel like I can't speak, and I feel like I can't breathe. What do I do? What do I do? Nothing. I can't do anything. I sit there quietly as my phone rings and rings and rings. Are you okay? Can I get you anything? The nurse asks me. Yes, I'm okay. I don't need anything. I lied as the tears flow down my face. It's 1:05 a.m. and I am alone in this hospital room holding my nephew's lifeless body. His soft skin still warm. Not knowing if my sister's okay, I just wait and wait and wait. Hours later, my mom arrives. I see her glossy eyes and I know she feels what I feel. Sadness, pain, anger, and hopelessness. I can hear footsteps coming towards our room. It's the doctor, and he says, "Your sister survived, but we almost lost her." Finally, I can breathe. I have so many questions. We told the hospital staff something was wrong. We asked them for help. Why did they not help? Why did they not listen? Was it because of our skin color? Was it because our insurance was not the best? Why did this happen? How is this fair? Why did they not care? Why did they not help? As the days went by and my sister's physical wounds healed, we prepared to leave that uninviting, cold place. As we waited to be discharged, a little hummingbird came to the window and then flew to the closest tree branch. There he perched and waited with us for hours, bringing us comfort. Thank you, little hummingbird.
So I wrote a piece in this very special book called Decoding Our Origins, the lived experiences of Colombian adoptees. And so I have a contributing piece in here that I would like to read. So this is a compilation of stories from people who originated in Colombia, like me, and who have been displaced for different reasons. So here's a little bit about me and my story. So my piece is titled, I Remember. I remember 3 a.m. light shining in my face with harsh words saying, get up, you're coming with us. The police stood there watching us scramble to get dressed, while my brothers and I rubbed our sleepy eyes in order to make sure we weren't dreaming. We heard no words of concern or comfort. We left with no shoes on our feet. I remember my father, a soul rebel, fighting for survival to establish a foundation strong enough to withstand the many pressures of life. Smiles and laughter were always free-flowing, awareness and worries were always going, and business was handled with no hesitation. He represented Colombian beauty and hardship. I remember my mother, a beautiful woman burdened with her childhood memories. Drugs were her way of trying to forget all that had happened to her. Pain and hardship always seemed to cross her path. Losing herself and running away. I often wondered where she. It was always hard for her to stay. Could we, her children, fuel her will to live? She left me with numerous stories to tell. My father was killed, bullet to the head. The killer had no respect for the dead, or the family that would be torn apart, crumbled, and deeply wounded. How could things have fallen apart so quickly? Drugs and helplessness soon overwhelmed my mother. She was unable to take care of my 5 brothers and me any longer. Love soon became a distant memory. Warmth and security soon became a hopeless desire. Every night I cried myself to sleep, longing and desperate to be with my family. Did anyone feel the pain that my heart was consumed with? No will to talk or even smile. Nobody to talk to, even for just a little while. I was a little girl that carried baggage so heavy. My cries for help were so often unheard. So many homes, more than I can remember. Always alone, with no one to be my protector. Soon my sadness turned into anger and resentment. I hated the life that I had been given. Every day I reminded myself that my mother did not love me. I was convinced that I was a child that was lost and forgotten. But I remember, years went by with no easy roads. Anger and hope were in constant argument. Why should I care about life? I felt as though I had no reason to be alive. I had no one to help me care. Robbing, stealing, and dealing became my only means of survival. In and out of juvenile hall, child correction, child detention. What would become of me? Just another child thrown away, a wandering child, a conscious child I was, observing and learning, earning my way with strategy and thoughtfulness. Many events happened in such a short period of time. My mother was gone, my father was gone, lost family, lost culture, lost identity. I was left to take care of myself, but I had no fear. Heart on fire, mind racing, many questions, needing answers, overwhelmed. I had almost fully given up on my life. At 15 years old, I experienced another major life event that would change my life forever. Young girl I was, mother to be. How could this be? pregnant, I was always in my head. I realized that I determined the life of the child I was soon to have. My plan of action, I was going to find a way. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Where? With what help? I want to be a good example. Every step I took was fueled by this determination. My daughter was not going to feel the way that I felt. She was not going to have to feel alone without a mother constantly there. I was going to be there to kiss her and tuck her in at night. I was going to listen when she had something to say. I was going to care when and why she experienced heartache. I was also going to break the cycle of drug abuse and violence and restore our culture, heal from trauma, relearn our history. The next few years were filled with difficulty and struggle. Very few thought that I was capable. Struggles and hardship were overcome, and surprising achievements due to shine. These accomplishments were ours, for us. I graduated from high school with my diploma, with strong-willed motivation, blessed with my daughter. Her little face was my inspiration. Pushed on to get my AA, wouldn't start, got my BA. Wanted more tools to fight injustice, then received my MA, representing less than 1% of people like me. One who grew up in foster care. To make it this far, is this fair? Families wanted me, maybe adoption. Facing abuse, I lost this option. Proud of me, proud of us. Where are we? Years of involvement in our community, believing in us, our future, significant because we are many. Holding on, working so hard to raise my beautiful family, inspiring me to be all that I can be, resisting from being broken, wanting to build, create, and sustain a life that is free. We have lost so much, but fully cherish all that we have. I value my children, my crew, building and motivating everything that I do. Professor, protector, beading, braiding, organizing, training, strategizing. This is my life. I stand up with the utmost warrior mama pride, doing my best beyond words. I dream of a happy and stable life for those that are around me and from a distance. We are alive. Greatness lives in us. Complex, simple, and beautiful. We are the protectors of protectors. We are many. We represent the past, the present, and the future. We are what was, what is, and what will always be. We are a compilation of compilations with our stories written in the constellation. So we feel grounded in our walk and courageous in our talk. Thank you.
Usually when I get sick, what happens is I'm not one to like go to work so I can be contaminated and get everyone else sick. And usually when you do get sick, there's this little like lingering cough at the end. So I got sick around December 2019, and I had that lingering cough. I'm not contagious anymore, so I'm good. What I kind of encountered was racism, and I didn't realize it was racism until a little later. And so I would have the lingering cough, and a couple students who were our workers would ask, hey, do you have that corona? Do you have COVID? And I can only assume that it's because of the way that I looked. And had I been white, had I been Black, had I been Hispanic, had I been anything else but Asian, that comment wouldn't have expressed itself. So my name is Sheena Kook, and I work at Cal State San Marcos. I'm a staff there. And today I really want to touch on Asian racism that I feel like has been downplayed so much in America, and it's just upbringing right now. So going back to COVID, ever since then, it's just kind of little by little. We got it when we were younger, saying that, people saying that, hey, you're Asian, so you're good at math, right? Hey, you're an Asian woman, you can't drive, right? And these are some of the things that make us chuckle a little bit. But what we did was downplay racism, because we weren't getting beat up, we weren't getting killed for this, right? Which brings me to my next point. The violence on elderly Asian Americans that's happening right now, that's been happening since probably December 2019 in our local area. And we're in San Diego, so it's happening right up north, an hour away. It's happening down in downtown San Diego. And these are vulnerable people who really remind me of my parents, that my parents can get attacked if they were nearby. Thank God they're in the East Coast right now. And that doesn't mean that they're safe, but because of this little thing, because of this virus, this pandemic, they think it's our fault. And I just want to make it known that it's not. It's definitely not because of us. It's not because of that, but that doesn't mean that you put out your anger and hate toward Asian Americans, and not only Asian Americans, but elderly, the ones who are vulnerable, that can't even defend themselves.
Let me tell you a story. I'll untangle the cobwebs of history and memory, of beauty and betrayal, a wild excavation of forgotten goddesses, fallen female deities, and earth-toned women that took their rightful places in cultures and clans on this native land. Resurrect the memory of Coatlicue, mother of all gods who birthed the stars and the moon. Xochiquetzal, remember her name. Her body used to flow like rhythm and run like water in clear creeks with beauty and ease. Her feet, the color of mud, deep, creamy, and soft. The perfect mixture of feminine mystique and fertility. After all this time, I can still hear her songs upon the wind. She carried birds and butterflies on her back to set right the balance of the cosmos. Reminiscent of the way mothers were respected. Call upon the essence of Tonantzin, the embodiment of earth, a loving, nourishing mother. She appeared to her children to warn. The fall of Native women, simultaneously the fall of the Americas. Unearthing the bitter root of trauma. La Malinche and Pocahontas, both girls violated and traded like playing cards at the hands of white colonizers. European men's demented fantasies and pedophilic ways make their way across bodies of oceans and onto the bodies of brown girls. John Smith's obsession with 10-year-old Pocahontas, perverting her every move. Hernan Cortez held captive a teenage Malinche, considered only a tongue, an object, a vessel for his conquest. Pale-faced men popularized missionary style on the backs of Native women. Sexual conquest as a strategy to debase the Native bloodline. To confuse our legacy, you call us Indians, savages, mestizos, Latino, Hispanic, and insult anything feminine, anything divine. Your biggest lie. We are the backbone of everything. You pretend you gave us civilization rather than syphilis, pollution, confusion, trauma, and blankets full of smallpox. 500 years and counting, digging deep into the dirt we find, buried bones and broken teeth until bodies became bruised, lifeless, and limp. Remember the women in Juarez, Guatemala, missing from the res, and our stolen sisters from Canada, and we will say her name. Today you can buy and beat brown women like nothing, disregard them like little pieces of trash, muffled, murdered, and missing. Before Jesus came, the Cord mothers used to say, a people can never be defeated until the hearts of the women are on the ground. Violence against Native women is not traditional. Violence against Native women is not our way.
I was 13 years old, going on 14, and I had a dream. Starting high school, I wanted to be popular, I wanted to be liked, I wanted to be the girl that everyone wished they could be and befriend. And I was determined to become that girl in high school. But at some point, I stopped caring about my appearance. I started slouching because I became unable to look at people in the eyes. My eyes would instinctively look down when walking and shift to the side when talking to someone. I learned to walk faster to avoid the crowded hallways and get home as soon as possible after each school day. I no longer wanted to be a part of this private school that I had the privilege to attend. It took me a while to realize that I was seen as inferior to all my classmates. I had learned on the first day that I was an outsider. Just as I had classmates I had known since elementary school, these students at this private school had attended this school for generations. The teacher and staff had taught their siblings, parents, even grandparents, and they weren't strangers at all to each other. I stood out like a sore thumb, a new face surrounded by a club that had been formed years ago, a club that I was too late to join. My algebra teacher, who had admitted to having been a bully during her high school years, nearly made me cry several times in her class. On the first day, entering my first algebra class, I saw that all the desks were taken and all eyes were immediately on me the moment the bell rang, and I remained standing awkwardly by the door. The teacher eyed me up and down before insisting that I had entered the wrong class, so there was no room left in the class for me. However, upon revealing on my printed schedule, which listed me as her student for that period, she got up from her desk chair and grabbed an old dusty swivel chair and had me sit there until she got an extra desk for me. At that moment, I wish I actually had made a mistake and had entered the wrong class, for I was convinced that I had ruined my first impression that I practiced so hard to perfect. I had just started the school year and I already felt like I'd failed. I felt unsafe, unaccounted for, unwanted. During class, days before a Dutch festival was going to take place on school grounds, in the middle of a lab assignment for biology class, I was in a shared lab station close to the window, where I could see men setting up tarps and booths for the upcoming event. A classroom of mine that will remain unnamed made an inoffensive comment that caught me off guard completely. He asked me, "Hey Scarlett, would you be offended if I asked you if one of the men working outside was your dad?" The biology teacher, who had heard the comment, did nothing to make this classmate realize that what he had said was, in fact, offensive. He did nothing to defend me or even turn this into a teaching moment. Instead, he ignored the incident, and the boy got away with this incident that nearly brought me to tears. How could he say that and think it'd be something I would laugh at? This same classmate decided it'd be fun to continue to mess with me, determined to make me laugh along with his inoffensiveness. In history class, where he and I sat together, I seemed to have provoked him, according to the school principal, by dropping my eraser. Apparently, by trying to move the eraser closer to me with my foot, not wanting to get up and draw attention to myself, I had communicated to him the idea that I was in fact flirting with him. Encouraged by classmates nearby, the boy kicked my eraser away from me and laughed upon seeing me struggle to retrieve it, stretching and reaching for it, seeing as no one in the area would be of no help. The classmates around us, taking advantage of the oblivious history teacher, encouraged the boy more. That I was playing hard to get and I just needed a push in the right direction before I eventually fell into his grasp. The moment his hands made contact with my upper thighs, they were slapped off and my legs closed tightly. A quick, "Sorry, Scarlett," was offered before another classmate interrupted, saying, "You were supposed to put your hand in between her legs so you could slap them together. Girls love that." The history teacher remained oblivious as the entire area that surrounded me burst into laughter. When reporting the incident to the principal, I was asked if I had provoked the incident in any way. I answered, if dropping my eraser was provoking him, then I guess I did provoke him. The boy and his classmates got detention for a couple of days, and I got offered sympathy once word spread of the incident, and I realized I didn't want to be popular anymore. I didn't want to be someone everyone looked at or took notice of. I just wanted to be left alone. I wanted to leave this school, which was just an expensive self-esteem and self-worth destroyer for me. I just wanted to go home, if I even felt safe anymore.
Stubby fingers wrap around my neck as I sit on my bathroom toilet. Scarlet wrists in the air, pounding drums in my chest, a black and blue spirit. My maiden name is Mist, it's calling me back, a whisper in the wind, can you hear it? Like a tree in a storm, my leaves fall off, but I still remain firmly standing. I was told that between partners, sexual assault didn't exist. I just needed to forgive, look away as he became more and more demanding. Forgive him for the midnights he stumbled home carrying disease, spiritual leprosy, high on cocaine and weed. Forgive him daily as he dissected my body on the broken bed with the thin purple sheets, and ignore that he was cursing me in the burgundy SUV on the 78 freeway, driving erratically, fearing that he'd kill me. Ignore that he was stripping away my dignity as he looked for me in the dark. My soul is crying out in pain. Can you hear me? I was told to look away as he plundered my peace of mind, to look away as he blew out the light inside of me, to look away as he curled his fist to smash in my brain, kill me as his demons deemed him sane. Why did you call 911? His mama screamed after Lucifer pulled out the big kitchen knife on me. Day and night he lived in his insanity, and hell danced across his face as he uttered, I don't care if I hurt you or the baby. The wild beast in the dry desert of his eyes told me he'd have no mercy, and I shook inside, though I lay perfectly still on that old couch with the Cheerios inside, and whispered, Jesus, help me. It takes two to tango, but I was done with this dance because no still means no, even when you're married. But even still, that dreaded day came again. The day when the white-coated doctors walked into the white-walled room and cold gray stethoscopes around their necks added to the gloom. It's cold here inside, and I whisper to God, I just want to be all right. But instead, the doctors took away my sunshine and pride when they told me to strip down so they could have a look inside of me. And cotton-tipped swab sticks were ready to go, and black microscopes waited in silence as they hoped to strip me down even more. The white-coated doctors, they squint their eyes of concern, so I shut my own eyes tight, but my tears still thundered out their words. And then the white-coated doctors were done, and I trembled from their cold steel instruments, and my pelvis screams in pain, and my world shatters as I'm told, take this bottle of pills. If they don't work, we'll give you more. Although he shackled and chained my ragdoll body for some time, that man couldn't enslave my mind. And I went to God again that day when I read in the black book, I will give you rest if you come to me. Rest from allegiance, poison words, and dark oppression. I'm free now, strong-willed and determined to keep fighting for my mission. Lucifer can no longer violate me on the broken bed with the thin purple sheets, but even still my eyes are open when I sleep because the crisp papers I got from the courthouse sometimes try to push fear into gear, hell-bent on gaining momentum. I pushed it away though because I paid a high price for my restored sanity, and I'm not trying to go back into the position in which El Chamuco left me. I've come a long way since I kicked the dude to the curb. I put my broken pieces together, then I became a nerd. And my eyes are set on the prize, a graduation diploma and a career. My world is as big as I can see it, and there's no room for doubt if I can believe it. The sky is the limit. I'm launching into my destiny, and white-coated doctors and bottles of pills are a thing of the past, and my maiden name is coming back to me. My new story, it's just beginning, and with a smile on my face, I stare into infinity. I'm a diamond coming out of the rough. I'm worth more than gold, and I don't know all what my future holds, but that's okay. My new story's already fire, and it's just barely being told.
I wrote this piece titled Motherland. As the sun hits the desert and Hindu Kush mountains, let us be reminded of the voices that have endured colonialism. Later, they robbed the minerals off the soil to stealing the opium poppy from my motherland. They call us Auladoy Muqammad, generation of resistance. They tortured and detained our fathers, brothers, and sons, and raped our mothers, sisters, and daughters. From creating militia to attack our motherland, we sit around the dinner table unexpecting the bombs to drop at any moment. Our mothers and grandmothers mourn our deaths in the fields of landmines only to find limbs to bury in our fatia. As they invade Afghanistan, many are still dying on the streets from poverty and malnutrition. Young girls self-immolating their bodies only to protect themselves from being sold off to warlords and those against human rights. The screaming voices of women being stoned to death in the soccer stadium are traumatically unforgotten. We must ask ourselves, who created these inhumane, misogynist monsters? In the culture and the beginning history of Afghanistan, these atrocities were never practiced. Afghan women were symbolic to culture and resistance to hegemony. In fact, women in Afghanistan had the right to vote before the United States and Europe did. Those of us who had a chance to leave find ourselves in a foreign land, refusing to acculturate and assimilate to the culture of those who colonized and enslaved people of color in the United States. Nobody cared to ask how my people became targeted to post-traumatic war. They tell us, welcome to the land of opportunity, and all I can think about is the news tomorrow that will report the many lives lost in my motherland. We left the war only to find ourselves in a greater war of racism, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, and xenophobia in the United States. They continue to stop us at every checkpoint and claim it's a random search only to find my people in a room criminalized as terrorists by strip searches and continuous questioning. Meanwhile, their own people continue to kill people of color in the United States and get falsely labeled as mentally unstable or having a bad day. They tell us to go back to a country where they have taken everything and left nothing for people to survive, especially when women are used as weapons of war.